So for those of you that are aware, this is the third part of a series today. We heard from some of the not necessarily fathers, but in some case founding fathers, first or second generations. We heard about the development of their company and sort of the passing the baton on to younger generations. And then we heard from that younger generation and their version, which was slightly different as to what goes on. And today we're going to hear an even possibly slightly different version about what goes on. And that's from the women. So whether they have a position of power within the company or they have a position of power at home or both, certainly their voice impacts family business. And so we get to hear straight from them today as to how that works and how that's going. So we're super excited to hear. I'm a super big fan of girl power, so really excited to have the women here today and to hear their version and their roles and their stories. And as always, we're very grateful to family consultant Neil Koenig, who helps us put these panels on and facilitates for us. So with that, we will get started. You just want to hold this, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I think that's easier.
All right. Thanks, Jane.
Take it away.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. This is the third, as you just heard, third of a series of Passing the Baton. A year and a half ago or so, members of the Family Business Institute filled out a survey and said they want to hear about succession. So we came up with this idea of having the sons and then the fathers. I've got a couple of women that are not as progressed along in their development to succeed their families. So it turns out to be just sons and fathers. Well, after the first session, the wives of the sons came up to me and said, "Hey, when's our turn?" And it was like, I've spent an entire career working with families, and I don't think to ask them to do a program. So I was chastened on the spot, and then Jane and Lori said, "Well, of course." And then they were on. That's when they got nervous. As a matter of fact, they have been so nervous, this has made me nervous, for crying out loud. I've been up here for 3 times. But I said to them, hey, wait a minute. First of all, there is a sanctity about privacy in a marriage and in a family that's frankly nobody's business. And that sanctity we will respect. I also think that the room here is full of people, of friends we haven't met yet. So we don't have anybody here that's going to be a critic so much as just interested, because family businesses can be one of the greatest blessings in life. I don't have one, and I've envied my clients, where they do what they love to do professionally with people they love and care about, for a following generation that can benefit and give them a head start in life. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. But we also know that family businesses are not easy. One, they're not easy because they're families. When I took a class in graduate school on family dynamics, the professor said loudly and repeatedly, "You tell all these young couples you're going to work with someday they should move 250 miles away from their parents after they get married so all parties can grow up." And I thought to myself, well, that's really good advice. So, I set up 250 miles. I went 2,500 miles. So my family's all back in the Midwest. And so I thought that was good until I met ethnic families in the Valley and until I saw family businesses that frankly have only one location. And then they have all the challenges of growing up as marriages inside of an extended family with the pressures of work on top of it. That is not an easy task to do. And just to be a little more serious here for a second, there's a lot of challenges in life. There are simple challenges like, what are we going to eat tonight, or where are we going to go out to eat? That's pretty simple. We can solve that. And then there's complicated challenges, and that's what we do at work all the time. They're complicated and they're challenges. But then there are utterly complex challenges for which there's no easy solutions and no amount of advice that can be tailor-made in each case. And those complex challenges are, number one, marriage. I don't know that there's anything more complex than a marriage. And the second complex challenge is raising children inside of a family so that they grow up as loved and loving people who have empathy and who have ambition and are going to use the gifts God's given them. Talk about two challenges. So what do? I put these programs together with Jane and with Lori, and we start off with the sons, and we're talking about complicated challenges. And then we have the dads up here, and that's complicated challenges. And then these three women came up and said, hey, wait a minute. We want to talk about our utterly complex challenges, because what they are and who they are and what they do provides the soul and heart of family businesses. So, amongst all your nervousness, I admire your courage. And Amy in the middle says, well, I don't have anything to worry about. My in-laws are out of town. And then I didn't have the heart to tell her, well, it's going to be videotaped and they can find it anyway. But, and I assured them that I went out of my way to make sure that my hand-picked divorce attorneys are out in the hallway after this program for me to make introductions to you. But anyway, I'm just delighted that the three of you have come forward. On my far right is Nairi Dermenjian. Nairi's husband is Ago, and Ago Dermenjian is the new president and CEO of Durco Foods. Actually, Durco Foods International, as you know from our previous meetings, they sell tree nut products of California and Oregon across the entire world except for Antarctica and the North Pole. So, Nairi, welcome.
Thank you.
Seated in the middle is Amy McMurray. She is married to Charlie McMurray, who, it turns out, became president and CEO of the Charles McMurray Company. That's a third-generation company here in town, an exceedingly successful company that was founded by grandparents and then her in-laws, and now her husband, Charlie, has got the mantle of responsibility for this company. And sitting next to me is Lindsay Cross. And Lindsay is married to the new president and CEO of the Four Seas Construction Company, Preston, who's sitting over there. And their company, the Four Seas Construction Company, is a booming, growing sheet metal company that not only creates products in sheet metal for restaurants and big buildings and homes and roofs and stuff like that, but also does the installing of it. And they really are a growing company. And you married into that family business. So to begin our discussion, and let's start off with probably what the news critics would say a softball question, but it's an important one here. And that is, what about your families? I never asked Ago, for example, when he was up here, how many children do you have? And I didn't ask any of that stuff. What was the matter with me? But now I can finally find that kind of stuff out. So, Lori, tell us about your own immediate family.
So, Preston and I have two boys. Mason is 9 and Carson is 7. They go to Cedarwood Elementary in Clovis, and Preston grew up in Clovis, and so I was able to move there, and we enjoy it. And both boys are quite spunky and quite different.
From each other, or from crosses, or from you?
All of the above. Mason is just very serious and very, focused in everything that he does. And he loves his Legos, and he loves to play baseball, and he does that with all of his heart. And Carson is the most fun-loving, free-spirited child you would ever find in your life. He does not know a stranger. And so he's just a ball of fun.
Neat. Well, well, we'll just stay with you for just a second. You have a career, right?
Yes.
What's that about?
I teach in Central Unified, and I've been there. This is my 12th year, and I started as an elementary school RSP special education teacher, and I have now worked. I did elementary school, and then I went to the middle schools for a couple years, and now I'm at the high school. So I've taught kindergarten through seniors. They're all very different and very fun in their own ways. Now I'm not actually in the classroom teaching, but I oversee the department as a whole at one of the high schools, and so I work with 10 other case managers and oversee about 180 students.
Wow. See, this is just as easy as talking in front of students, right?
No.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
Kids are totally different.
Amy, what about your family?
I have 2 boys as well. I have Jameson, who is 10, and Maxwell is 8, and they are also very different from each other. They're wild animals, and
Not even children, they're
so
animals.
much fun. Yeah, they love sports. They each love different sports, and Maxwell is very outgoing and has lots and lots of friends, and Jameson is a little more serious, and he's he's had engineer brain, which is very different from mine. Loves to put anything together, and everything that comes in the house that needs to be put together, Jameson does it. So, and my friends that are moving said, "Can you come down? Can Jameson put our beds together for us?"
And how old is he?
He's 10.
Oh.
Yeah, he loves doing it though, so it's fun for him.
Ah, cute.
Yeah.
Neat. You had a career, right?
I did. I worked in organizational psychology. I worked for a firm that did consulting in the Bay Area, and that was really fun, and that was what my degree was in, so I enjoyed that. And I also worked in retail for Pottery Barn, which was a really fun job. I loved that job. And I loved working there because they had a great company culture and very good training, and I helped manage in the stores, and I also helped open new stores. And got to travel with that, and that was really fun. And then I also did property management, which was great too.
Wow. And then you married Charlie. Yeah, well, we'll find out more about that in a little bit. Nairi, what about your family? No 2 sons there, I think.
2 girls, in fact. I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, and I think we're similar in the sense that they're very, very different in how they are. 2 completely differently wired brains. One is very science-minded. The other is not. She's a reader. She's an actress. All that stuff. So very different. They attend Cardin School of Fresno, and I don't know. They're happy kids.
Good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Now, you had a career, too, before you met Ago, right?
I did. I graduated from USC School of Film. I have a degree in live television production, directing and producing live television, which doesn't really do me much good here, but it's what I studied at school. So my career, before I moved here, I was directing and stage managing live television shows, award shows, writing the script, the technical script for the shows, which has nothing to do with the dialogue itself, but the technical elements that come together that make a show. The lights, the mics, the camera, angles, spotlights, who goes on, who waits, all that stuff. So that was my job. So
I didn't ask Amy. Are you a local? You're from around here as well.
Yes.
Preston's from Clovis, and you're from
Reedley.
From Reedley, so you're home.
Yeah.
You got roots here.
Yes.
Are you a Central Valley person?
No, I grew up in Mission Viejo, which is in Orange County in Southern California. Yeah. And I met Charlie in college in the Bay Area.
LA. I'm from LA. I was, and then I moved about 15 years ago to Fresno.
Yeah.
So I'm an import.
But originally, you were born in the Middle East, right?
Correct. I was born and raised in Beirut, Lebanon, and I came here when I was 15. And I went to high school, and to college, and eventually transferred to USC. And I lived in Los Angeles for 25 years. So, yeah.
And then you met Ago.
And then I met Ago. We were introduced. We were introduced by mutual family friends, and then I moved. So
That couldn't have been easy.
no, it wasn't, because I had a very large group of friends. Not a big family. It's just myself and my mom, but I had a very large circle of friends there through the business and social circles and whatnot. But and then I had to move because of the family business, so that brought me here. It was easier for me, obviously, to move here than for him to leave the business and move to Los Angeles. So it doesn't help that he doesn't really like LA anyway. So that was sort of an easy decision to make. So
Yeah.
easy for him.
Yeah. But not easy for you. So you've sacrificed your career for a family business that's into tree nuts. I mean, jeez.
Well, when you put it that way. To be fair, the family, my father-in-law and my husband both had a lot of good connections here in Fresno, and they introduced me to a gentleman who was able to hire me in what used to be known as Panagraph, a marketing company. And so I worked in marketing for about a year and a half, until I was pregnant and having babies, and we said, okay, enough of that. But I did get to do some video editing for commercials that we produced, some small things, nothing, here and there. So yeah, I did get a chance to do a little bit of that, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of advertising, a little bit of video production, and that was that. And then now I actually make my kids' videos. I produce their little childhood videos. So
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah, that's neat.
comes in handy.
So your career was impacted, Amy, as well by marrying into a family business that couldn't abide with your Pottery Barn travel and all that stuff, right?
Well, there is a Pottery Barn in town. I probably could have gone to work there, but like Neri, when we moved here, I was pregnant, and so I was ready to stay home. So, yeah, and I enjoy being with the boys and working at their school. Well, volunteering, I don't get paid, and
Most important work doesn't get paid.
right, yeah. So, and driving them all around town. I'm not actually a stay-at-home mom because I'm never home, but I'm usually taxiing people around, and so it's fun though. I really enjoy doing it.
Well, you have a special challenge because your career is just as important to you as Preston's being president of a family business is to him. Mm-hmm. How do you all balance all that?
Uh-huh.
I asked how do you, not how do you.
There's been a lot of conversations, and we've done a lot of trying to figure out the logistics of everything. It was never in my mindset to ever be a stay-at-home mom. That's just my summer vacations. That's all I can do. Go back to school. I'm going to work. Bye. And I've always been fine with that. And I enjoy my job, and I enjoy my great vacations. I actually went through the administration program, and so I have my admin credential, and that was kind of a time where things started to get busy for Preston at work, and we were trying to figure out what are we going to do, and then I got into the position I'm in right now, and I realized I don't want to use my admin credential. I'm fine with being, just a teacher. And I know that's not, but so it's been one of those things we've kind of tried to decide, if I was in an administration, then I would have evenings and different things that would come along with that, and it doesn't necessarily work for our dynamics, and I'm okay with that. So it's just trying to figure out what we're wanting to do, and it's nice because I do still have a lot of vacations with the boys it's unfortunate that he's in construction and my downtime is the summer. So it doesn't match, but that's okay. We make it work. And
Good for you.
but, yeah.
That's good. Each of you, what did you know about family businesses before you married into one?
Nothing.
Nothing. Personally, nothing.
You didn't.
A lot.
You knew a lot.
My parents started a business the year I was born, so I was raised in a family business, and it was a great experience. They started it with their friends from high school, and so we all kind of grew up together, all the kids, and it was business all the time. At home, on vacations, they were always talking about work and stuff like that. But it was also great too, because we had a close community, and it's kind of rare that those partnerships work out, but it was a real gift.
So you came in with your eyes wide open.
Yes.
To a degree.
Definitely. Yeah, maybe that's helped a little bit.
Yeah.
Just to have an expectation of what it means. It is definitely different, Charlie's family business than my parents' family business. There's a lot of social responsibilities that go along with Charlie's family's business. They do a lot of activities with the employees and things like that weren't as big of a commitment for my parents. So that's different.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask each of you about that, and since we're with you on this, what role do you play in Charlie's business, family's business?
I don't have a job title there, and I'm sure he enjoys having his own
world.
Exactly. He doesn't want me up in his business, so to speak. But like I said, there's a lot of different fun activities and that I go to and I enjoy going to and getting to know everybody that he works with, all of the employees and their families. It's really a privilege to get to be a part of that and to not have the responsibility of every day in, day out job there.
Could you give us an idea of some of those activities that this company does that socializes with their employees and stuff that you end up part of?
Yeah, so there's a sales meeting every other month. All of the salesmen come in from out of town, and there's a luncheon on Friday, and all the families are invited to that, so we go to that. And there are baseball games here and in Sacramento, and there's fishing trips, and there's camping trips, and there's
Christmas breakfast.
the Christmas breakfast. Can't forget that. That's a highlight of the year.
Yeah.
And then there's other, dinners and things like that.
So, are you the first lady of the Charles McMurray Company then?
Oh, I think probably my mother-in-law still holds that title. But I'm trying to follow in her footsteps of just making people feel comfortable being there, and I'm interested in their lives and their families. It's a nice environment to have families invited to things, I think.
And your kids go along?
Yes, they climb on in the warehouse, and they're running around with the push carts, and they have to hide them when it's time for the kids to come because they have all kinds of fun. But there's lots of kids their age, and they love going to those things too.
Yeah. Do you have any participation in Durko Foods?
Not an official one, but first of all, I think all three of us probably do play one role that doesn't have a title, and that's just supporting cast. We're always in the background, making sure all is well. But I think all three of us do that every day. That really doesn't have a title. It's just something that you have to do because their positions, their jobs comes with a lot of stress, and so you kind of have to sponge some of that, to balance out. So that's one. But other than that, I handle the Durko's social events, and we don't have as many events as you guys.
I bet you don't have a fishing trip in that
We don't
family.
have a fishing trip. No, we don't. But we have a yearly retreat event, an entire week of production. All the employees come from all our offices around the world, and so we entertain them and their families when they come with them. There's always a big dinner event at the end celebrating the big retreat, and so I handle that, and I also handle company travel.
That's a big job.
I love doing that. It's the best part of my my day. It's fun because it's kind of complicated. It's never from one point to the other and come back, and it's never in the U.S. It's usually all over the world. Sometimes I get a call. Leon or Ago will say, I need to go to Tokyo for a night, and I'll be on this street, and I need to stay in a hotel. Great. Okay. So I've never been to Tokyo myself, but Google to help me is always there. So I love doing stuff like that. That's a lot of fun. And then I also handle all their air travel, to and from, and those types of things.
Huh. Do you ever travel with your husband?
No, very little. Very little. One of the attractions to Ago was when we first met was, I was told he's an international businessman. He travels, and a lot, and everybody knows that I love traveling, and so that was one of the things. You should meet him.
Well, I heard it was because he was so tall.
Yeah, well, that too. That was the first thing I was told, that he's really tall. You should meet him. And then the second thing was that you love to travel. He travels a lot, and I said, great. So in our 14 years of marriage, we have traveled one time before we had kids, and that was to China, and it was a business trip, and that was it. After that, we had kids, and so we do travel now. Recently,
as a family.
Kids, yeah. Now that the kids are old enough, we do that, but that it's a little different.
Yeah.
Family travel versus
right.
fun travel.
You participate in the family business, right?
Very little. We always joke about the fact that we probably could never work together because we need our separate space and our separate, personalities. But at Four Seas, they do a lot of things for the team members and their families and activities. And so there's a weekend camping trip that started 2 or 3 years ago. And so that's fun. And we love going up to Washan. And so then we got to this one spot. My oldest, he told me, he's like, Mom, you don't like tent camping. I'm like, no, I don't. But you'll go tent camping for Dad's work. Yes, that's the one time I'll go tent camping. And so I suffer through the tent camping. And
Suffer?
Yes, I don't like tent camping. But I'll do it for Four Seas. And then we have quite a few different things. There's the Christmas party, and I get to walk around and be Preston's wife. This year it was a lot of fun because I gathered a group of a couple other wives, and we all did the dessert bar, and it was so much fun. And so one of them is uber creative, and she just went to town, and it was whimsical. So it was the upside down Christmas tree, Whoville. And so we had so much fun, and it was exciting to be part of the wives giving back to the company because they do so much for all of the team member families. And so just kind of the wives getting to have fun and participate in it. But other than that, I don't know. I think I'm a sounding board that's not supposed to talk back. And so I think, every once in a while he'll ask me questions and I'll say something. He's like, no. Okay. But that's as far as day-to-day, I'm not involved.
I want to get back at this behind-the-scenes support and sounding board thing. But Preston mentioned when he was up here that the two of you taught a financial literacy course for your employees.
Yes.
And you were part of that.
Yes.
Tell us about that. That's unique.
So Preston and I went through the financial piece through Dave Ramsey. September of 2012, and it really did a lot for our own personal finances and our relationship and communication and everything with that. And there's different things that we thought, other people would benefit from hearing this. And so one thing, he took a lot of that and kind of started working on that aspect within the company. And so then other people became interested. So through Dave Ramsey, they have a program, and they were able to offer it at Four Cs to the team members, and anyone who wanted to come, you can come. And I think it was an 8 or 9 week course, and we were able to teach that and just kind of sit down. And it wasn't specifically talking about our finances, but it was going through the different steps in Dave Ramsey and how you can work towards being debt free and the importance of it. And then they were able to add in different aspects with the retirement and planning and all of those aspects. So
Wow.
we were able to do that together, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah, you co-taught that.
Yeah.
And that was after work.
Yes. Yeah, it was
And
in the
employees and their spouses came to these classes.
Yes. And there's a couple fun stories, that people came back and they're like, well, I was able to do this. And it's like, I'm glad that it was something that they benefited from. And then a lot of people continue talking about it. So we actually ran a second class as well. So we've done it twice now.
Huh.
So.
Neat. Do you have any quote from anybody that took the class and said, man, this was a good thing or anything like that helped them not buy something on installment plans for the next 80 years?
Well, one girl, she's younger than me, she moved back home with her parents because she realized that it was more important to save money in that sense rather than having her own apartment. And so she saw the value in it and realizing, if I do it this way, then I'll be able to do this. There was one who was able to buy a home for him and his son, and it was just, and he came back and told Preston, I really appreciate that you did this because I would have never thought it was possible. So it's exciting to see them succeed and to feel valued from, I don't know, I don't want to say management, but from people that are, helping them. They're helping them not only with the day-to-day, but with their lifestyles at home too, and showing that that's an important.
Sure.
Because once they're happy at home, then they become better team members at work.
Yeah. It seems so far away from sheet metal fabrication.
So different.
And yet that's what a family business can do.
Mm-hmm.
That was really neat. Let's get to this business. And Nairi, you were the first one. You're the background of support. And I won't quote you any further than that. Would you comment more about that?
Well, they're, three of our husbands are relatively young, right? And they've gotten positions with with their own family company that's very, very stressful. There are just some days that are really, really difficult on them, and some are easier than others. But the really tough ones are really tough, especially in our business. And he quoted that before, and when he was up here, how a ship that's carrying 40 of their loads is sinking, and suddenly you have nightmares, right, and things like that. And so those are the days that you really have to kind of just become a sponge basically, and let them talk about it and not really comment too much, because it really doesn't help to say anything about it. It is what it is, and you just kind of let them get it out of their system. It's important. You learn the days when you want to, fight your fights, and then the days then when you realize, no, this is, really serious, and you become serious. And then, of course, the kids being there is always helpful, because kids have no idea. They have no clue. He's having a nightmare, and my 9-year-old can walk in and say, "You will not believe what happened today," and say something really silly like one of the boys picked up a bug, or whatever, something like that. And so that already really neutralizes the environment that we're in, and that always helps. And I think that's one of the good things that we have with our family is that, we have a lot of ups and downs. And the ups are usually, the cause of the ups are the kids, because they're clueless. And that's good.
Yeah, God bless their innocence.
They're wonderful, yeah. So,
Do you and your husband make an effort to shield the children from the stresses and strains of Durko foods, so they're not hearing the nightmare?
Not so much. No, not so much, because I think it helps them to hear some of the frustration that's coming out, because, hey, that's, it's a real life problem. Listen to what's going on. Appreciate why Dad is being so stressful today. It's nice to hear that. So no, I don't shield them. If he's in an animated mode, I may say, let's.
Isn't that a great phrase? An animated mood. Oh man, I got to use that one.
Yeah. Then yes. Then I step in and I say, well, let's talk about this later. I do that. But as far as real problems, I want them to sit there and hear what's going on, because it's part of our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy, comments on this topic of being the support behind the scenes?
I enjoy listening to what's going on at work. I'll ask questions, and Charlie's pretty good about leaving work at work. But on Sunday night, he writes a weekly newsletter that goes out, and I read that for him, and then sometimes I have ideas.
Whoops.
But he's always very graceful about hearing them, or sometimes he's already implemented them, or whatever. He lets me feel like I have something important to say. And then, so I like to know what's going on. I don't think he overshares, so I always ask questions, because my dad would come home and my mom worked with him, so they were talking about it all the time. So I ask, because I like to know everything. I'm nosy.
Yeah. What happens when he says, you know what, this is something I don't want to tell you?
Then I just let it go until
and
he's
that
ready.
happens?
Not very often. If it's something that is confidential, but he can tell me, he'll say, this is confidential, like, don't talk about this with anybody else. Or if he'll say, I can't talk about that yet, I just have to respect that. It doesn't go over well if I try to push it anyways.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You need support yourself. You come home from a stressful day at work, and then he comes home from a stressful day at work. How does that work?
We just hope it's not the same day. And there's sometimes that it does happen, and I am an over communicator, so I would like to tell you all of my problems, and you need to listen to me, and that's important because I need to get it off, and then I can move on. You guys are laughing. Stop it. And he does not need that, so he will keep it in, and then he'll be super quiet and grouchy about something, so then it's something that I did, and then I flip out because what did I do wrong? I didn't even say anything, and then he's like, no, I had a bad day at work. Well, just tell me that. So it's just trying to find that balance, and me trying to figure out, why he's in the mood that he's in. Is it something that happened at work? Is it something that happened at home? Is it something that didn't actually happen and I'm just perceiving it? Mm-hmm. But there's times where we just have to figure it out. And we have conversations every once in a while, and he will say something, and I'll be like, well, what about this? Well, I didn't think of doing it that way. I'm like, well, I have good ideas too. And as far as you had asked about, shielding things from the kids.
Yeah.
Our kids are so, I don't know, they're so involved, and they know so many of the team members, because they like to, they'll go into the shop on Saturdays, and, Mason will be out there working with the guys, and he's doing this, and he's, just having fun. He built himself a supercross track out of metal one day. And so, he knows so many of them that it's important that they don't hear stories, because then you don't want them to,
know things, and Preston is very private about that, and so, they might know something's going on, but it's adorable because they, in the car, my dad did that building. Dad, are the Four Cs guys still working there? Because, so they'll ask different questions, and oh, that was so awesome. We took my mother-in-law, Carol, to the aquarium in Monterey for, it was her Christmas present. So we went a couple weeks after, and there was a job going at the convention center. I'm terrible at names. And so we thought it would be fun. So we walked down to the convention center. So the foreman there, he got us all hard hats. We had on our vest, and we got to walk through, and the boys got to go look at different things. So we got to see the job site, and then we also got to see some of the team members, and it was just so neat. And that was on a Thursday. And Preston said when when the foreman came to pick up his check on Friday, he was just walking around telling everyone, so Preston's kids came and did this, and they did this. And it was just neat for them to see outside of, work or the shop and to do something. And it was nice for the team members as well as the boys. And it was just a fun experience.
And so your kids go along to all these social events and stuff, and they horse around in the warehouse,
Yes.
apparently. Do you and Charlie try to shield them from some of his stresses and strains? Sales didn't go right, or, whatever?
We don't talk about, we don't talk about the business that much in front of them. Charlie doesn't bring it home that much, and like you said, they see all these people all the time, and so we don't usually talk about it. They all know maybe if something happens, like we lost a line, or if something exciting happens, then they'll probably overhear us, and they've got those big ears all the time. So,
oh yeah,
yeah, and they absorb it, and they don't. Sometimes they don't have any control over it. So I do shield them a bit. Yeah.
I've had a number of cases over the years where finally an adult children, the age of your husbands or you, said to the parents, "There's no way I'm going to go into this family business and follow you." Because all we've heard about is negative our entire childhood. Mm. You always come home from work complaining about the workers, complaining about the government, complaining about, all this kind of stuff. And the hell with that, I want a different life. Mm. So you guys, from what I can see or hear, your children are getting a positive view, in addition to some doses of reality, about the importance of what Grandpa started. Mm-hmm. Or great-grandfather started, Amy, in your case. Yeah. So your children have positive views of these family businesses.
Yes. Jameson, when he was in second grade, they had a school project where they had to say what they wanted to be when they grew up, and they wrote it on this little chalkboard and hold it in front of them when they took their picture. And I'm sure he's the only child that said hardware salesman.
No kidding.
Yes. It was like teacher, doctor, whatever, babysitter, and he's like hardware salesman. Oh yeah, he thinks it's fantastic, and it's a privilege, and I think we try to present it to them that way as well, to have an opportunity to work for your family's business. So I think he's looking forward to it. Dad took over for Grandpa. Someday it'll be me. That's what they think.
And that'd be okay with you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great life. I hope they want to do that. But if they don't, I want them to do what they want to do.
Of course.
Yeah.
Sure. Your children, do they know Leon's story and how he started with a IBM or Smith Corona typewriter, and here he is today? Do they know that whole story and
they do.
The sacrifices?
Absolutely. And we remind them on days that they don't. Every chance, they're living a very fairy-like life, very different than my life when I was growing up. When I was 7 years old, the civil war in Beirut started, and it was still going when I left when I was 15 years old. So I was in bomb shelters off and on, trying to survive, looking for the next day. If you woke up the next morning, it was, hey, we made it. It was that kind of a setting for me. And I wouldn't want that for them. It's not that I'm sad. I'm glad they will never have that, fear growing up. But they also have sort of an extreme opposite, where they have a beautiful home, we have air conditioning when it's hot, we have, hot water. That was something, simple things like electricity. Showering in Beirut is a thing where you have to wait when you have electricity and hot water. If it's not on the same day, then you don't, right? And so these kids, they turn on the water. It's, we can shower 3 times a day if we wanted to. So there's really nothing much that they want to do and they're not able to do. So both Ago and I are always, in their, face, reminding them, hey, this is a privilege. You're really lucky, and there's always some kind of a story that I will tell them about how this is so much nicer than what I had, and so they know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know neither one of your daughters ever said, I want to be a hardware salesman. Do they ever think that, gee, maybe I'm going to work with Dad? And
I don't know. Not really. Elsa wants to be an architect. She already knows, and my older one, Naya, she hasn't really figured out what she wants, but she has never really said anything as far as, going to the office or whatever. They're very polite. Our offices are, we know, the kids know everybody in the office. They're all very nice, very kind, but it's also, they know they're supposed to be very polite when they go to the office, so I think they're more concerned about acting properly than actually trying to find out what is it that you do here. They've never really gone that far. They're always very proper and not us. No.
Well, in a way, that's how your father-in-law. He did not design this company for his son to eventually take over. It was circumstances and Ago's talent and stuff like that, but that was never prescribed or expected.
Right. Correct.
Yeah, and your guy's already voting on his own. How about your 2 sons? They're sure proud of what they see.
Yes. I definitely could see Mason, the older one, getting right in there. He loves to work. You give him a project, he does it. You give him, something to build, he'll put it together. We bought a kitchen island, and Preston had to put it together, and Mason was like, okay, so this part goes here, and this goes here, and it's like, he's all about it. And I think Carson would be a phenomenal salesman. And he will get you to buy just about anything because he'll just sweet talk it and he'll just look at you like, don't you want to? And you'll buy it. So I don't know what his role would be within the company. He would make something work and he would be excellent at it. But I could definitely see Mason doing pretty much any aspect.
And you wouldn't discourage that?
No. He's always talked about going in and, he asks if he can I go to work with Dad? It's like, okay. If he goes in on a Saturday, then yeah. And with Carson, it's like, no, I think you're going to stay home with Mom. But I want to. No, you won't let Dad work. So he'll be out doing everything else, talking to everyone else or stopping everyone else from working.
Yeah.
So Mason will help and Carson will distract. But
it's very
fun.
Yeah. It's very common for family businesses 10 years from your kids' age that they, during high school, actually work there at the family business, and they actually get paid for it. And even during college, a lot of family businesses, and it's, in a way, it's a grooming thing. Sometimes it's explicit, and other times it's, hey, this is a good opportunity for them to learn responsibility along with those privileges that they've been enjoying. Can you picture your kids doing that kind of thing at the work?
Yeah.
I would encourage it, absolutely. I mean, Grandpa and Dad, they have so much, they're very well respected in this in Fresno, and so for them it would just be a positive thing to be involved because it's they don't have to work. Obviously, they have to maintain it, right? But they have to be respectful and respected. But I think it would be great if they wanted to come and give it a try. I would love that.
Yeah. And this is unique to you and not to the rest of us, but the currency at Durko's is that the two owners each speak 5 different languages fluently.
Yeah.
Are your children bi, tri, or quadlingual?
It's a sore subject. So.
Ooh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I speak 4 languages, and so we started out with that many with our kids. We figured, hey, if we can do it, they can do it. However, one of them, the language that I do speak is Arabic, and I didn't want to teach them Arabic really. We didn't think there was a benefit to that. But one language that Algo does speak is Mandarin, and we thought that would be a really good language. So we started them at age 2, and up until very recently, 2 weeks ago, we took a little pause, because it became very, very difficult for them to transition to. They know many, many words, but they struggled proceeding to turn these words into sentences. Mandarin is a really, really tough language, and so they speak Armenian, English, Armenian. They learn French in school. It's part of Cardin School's curriculum, and we're working on Spanish as well.
Yeah, I remember your husband saying once in a business setting that he thinks that if you can speak English, Chinese of some dialect, and Spanish, you can work in the world.
Pretty much. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree. It's, Mandarin's been tough, but we really haven't been able, you never know. Maybe we'll start again, but we're working on the other 3.
Yeah, yeah. Are your families at least stressing 2? English and something else?
No.
No.
When Mason was little, he did sign language because that way he was able to tell me he wanted more and please. But we stopped. We stopped at about 1.5 years on that one. No, they say different things in Spanish. My Spanish is high school Spanish, so I don't remember a whole ton of it. But no, we pretty much. They're doing very well at speaking English.
Good.
We're pretty much English as well. Both my brother and sister-in-law speak Spanish, and we've always wanted the boys to learn that too, but I should talk to you. We haven't had very much luck finding places to have them go to learn it.
Yeah.
They'll eventually learn it in school, but yeah.
Well, there's one area of learning that's really critical. What are your children learning about wealth? Because my hunch is, well, I don't know all your backgrounds, but your children are growing up with more wealth than you might have ever had as a child. And the hot water's there, and tickets to Europe and things like that. So how do you, and they'll be wealthy children and adults someday. What are you teaching them about wealth?
For us, we have, going through the whole Dave Ramsey process. So both boys, they have their 3 envelopes. They have their give, save, spend, and they know, what those are for. And so they don't necessarily know that I've taken their money and put it in there. If they get money for their birthday, I'm like, okay, we're going to put half of this in your, in your save. And then we're going to put, a quarter in your give and a quarter in your spend. And they're like, I have $10. Well, yay, good job. So they don't know where the other parts went. But they know that they have savings accounts and they'll eventually, have access to them. And they don't know what's in there, and that's okay. They're still young enough. But they know, when we go on trips, they take their spend, and they know that they only have that much, and so we make them do their own purchase, and then they put the money back in their spend envelope, and then they hand it to their mom, because that's where the envelope stays. But so, I mean, they have a concept of it, but they don't really know the true, I don't know.
How are you guarding against them thinking that they've got more money than other kids in school? They may be the wealthiest kids in the classroom.
I wouldn't say that.
Let me just say that.
But I think that we do a very, going through the Dave Ramsey process, I am a total cheapskate. I always have been. I would always, growing up, I wanted my mom, don't pay me my allowance until you can give me a $20 bill because I won't spend a $20 bill. Give me a $5 bill, it's gone. But if it's 20, I'll keep it there. So
Jeez.
I don't know. But so we do a lot to make sure that we save enough money to do things that we want. So the boys know that we save money, and then that's how we go to Disneyland, once every couple years. So they know that money's being saved, and it's not necessarily, they ask for new pairs of pants, and I'm like, well, we can't afford it right now because they don't know the money's being saved. They just know that they can't have access to it. And so they live within their means. And
Yeah, so what you're saying is that there's privilege here, but there's also responsibility.
Oh, absolutely.
And you guys are teaching both ends.
Absolutely. It's not given to them freely.
Good. Amy, what do you got to say about your boys and wealth?
Well, Charlie and I are actually going to a seminar pretty soon on the price of privilege and what that looks like for kids that grow up with money, and how you can have them not be negatively affected by it. So I'm interested in finding out how to do that. They do earn things. We don't just buy them anything they want. They have to save their money for certain things, or they do chores and they earn money if they want something special, or with behavior, things like that. We haven't gone into how much wealth they come from or may have yet, but we do. We talk about giving, and we talk about responsibility that we have to give back to our community and to our church and to things like that. And as they get older, they'll learn more and more about that.
We really haven't talked about money with them. I feel that that's something that they're too young to really understand what we have, what we don't have, and for me, especially with my childhood, or in the way I grew up, you can have it today and maybe not tomorrow. I don't really consider what we have something that we have and will have forever. I always envision not having tomorrow, and maybe the next day will be different, and then the day after that will be different. So I don't really stress on that really a lot. I don't know that if you ask them right now, if they were here right now, if you ask them, are you wealthy or do you have money, they will probably say, I don't know. They really, we haven't stressed that enough for them to. They know that if they really needed a pair of tennis shoes and theirs have to really be torn for me to go buy them, I'm not going to just get them 7 pairs because I can. Then they know that we can go and buy a pair of tennis shoes. So in that sense, they're comfortable knowing what they can and cannot do. But every day that we're there with me in the market, in the store, I'm constantly explaining why I'm choosing this over that, and this is too expensive, and we're not going to buy that. And so they know that there's certain things that we buy and we don't buy, and so I think they have an idea, but it's really not something that we, in fact, one of them yesterday mentioned that one of their friends, she said, I think they're really rich. And I said, oh, well, that's nice. Why do you say that? She said, because I think they have 3 companies. They own 3, this family owns 3 companies. And I said, all right, great, good for, it's such a, because she also doesn't understand what that means. They're rich, what does that mean? So, and I kind of like it that way. I want to let that be for as long as possible.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Neat. Well, if you were asked, what are the advantages of being in a family business and what are the challenges, what would you say? Amy, you've got a great big grin.
Always have a grin.
Ready to go.
Okay, so the advantages. I'm really, really lucky. I am in a family business that's been around for 35 years. My father-in-law started it, and I have a fantastic relationship with him. And so, there's really very little negative that I have to say about the challenges. If someone came up to me and said, hey, I'm going to marry, or I'm looking to get married to a family business, then there is something I would say about that. To me, it's like this. If you're getting married, you're already getting into a situation where it's two different families and they're coming together, and that in itself has, as you said in the beginning, a lot of challenges. When you're marrying into a family business, it's like this. It's like inheriting a shop versus inheriting a factory. I think a shop, when you're getting married, that's the shop to me in my mind. You can redecorate, you can move the aisles, you can put a desk, rearrange, and it'll still be a business, and it'll still produce and be good. Factory is a factory. You're not moving anything. It is what it is. Realize it in advance and understand that it will always be that way. So to me, that's the biggest difference between marrying into a family business and not a family business. I don't know if that analogy makes sense to you, but
I thought it did.
That's how I kind of see it.
Yeah. Amy, your take on this? Advantages, challenges?
I think there's a lot of advantages. I mean, other than the responsibility of all of the families that count on the business, that's a heavy responsibility. But then at the same time, you are also probably not going to get fired, unless you really blow it. But you're not going to be the first one laid off, probably. So, there's job security, but then there's also a huge responsibility that you're providing for all these other families. And so I know my husband feels that, and I feel that because of that. But the other privileges are we get to do probably more things as a family because he makes his schedule. And although he works really hard and has to be there a lot of the time and late days, he also can take a vacation. And his family loves to travel, so we get to do some of that. And so there are great privileges with it, but there are also responsibilities and a weight that comes with owning a business, and you kind of are, like you said, you don't move everything around. You're in control. It's a partnership in a marriage where you each have a say and you each compromise. But I don't have a say in the business. I don't work there. I'm not running it. But it does dominate a lot of our time. And I think it's worth it and I enjoy it. But I've sort of gotten absorbed into that. And so I enjoy it, but it is, it can be a challenge at times too. And just to expect that is, part of the deal.
Do you influence Charlie's hours so that he is not there 80 hours a week?
I mean, I've tried. And we've gotten the hang of it. At first it was difficult, especially when he was just starting with the business. He still does work long hours, but it was a lot harder when the boys were little and he wasn't there for bedtime or bath time or something like that. So he doesn't work weekends, which is great. He doesn't ever go in on Saturday or Sunday. So that's our time with him, and we love that. And if we need him during the week at a certain time, I just make sure I put it on his schedule because he's not always home at 6 or 7 or whatever. So if we have a game or if we have an event that we need him at, we have a family calendar, so there's nobody disappointed.
Well, if there's a game at 3:00, does he leave the C-suite to come over and watch the game and then go back to work?
It depends. It depends. If he's in town, he'll try to make it. If he's not and he has to be out of town, he might miss some things. But for the most part, if he's in town, he's at games, not practices. And I see some other dads out there at practices, and but I think he thinks that's redundant. You're there. Why would I be there? But he makes it to games, and he's really supportive of the kids and their stuff. And also me. If I say, I would really love to go out to dinner with my girlfriends, next Thursday, can you be home at 5:30? If he can, he will.
And who cooks that dinner?
If I'm out, I'm off.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, good. The boys and you can go out to eat.
Yeah.
I think, there's a lot of advantages that come along to a family business, and that's one thing, you asked about the time and Preston's availability. He does a great job of helping out in the evenings because I am busy. We argue, it's like, what's your status? Well, I'm still at work, but I'm still at work. Well, who's picking up the kids? Well, and so he does help a lot in the evenings. He's able to figure it out. If he says that he has something really big going on, I'm like, well, you can always go in early. So he goes in early every day, and by early I mean really early. And that's so the morning routine is my parental job, and then the afternoons he's much more flexible and supportive of that. And I think some disadvantages is just kind of remembering, when there's things going on, remembering, he can say whatever he wants about my coworkers, and I'm like, wait, that's so-and-so, or, oh, well, and so sometimes I have to kind of shelter my initial reaction, because it's, there's extra implications that go along with that. There's, there's just extra feelings behind it, or, frustrations. But I think it's just trying to figure out those dynamics and figuring out what your role is, even though you're not involved in the company. We have very important roles, and figuring out what that is.
Yeah. I thought of something the other day that I didn't run past you guys, and it's a touchy topic.
Oh, great.
It's
time to wrap it up.
Sorry, guys.
And I'm doing this even with my wife in the audience. My wife has lunch with men all the time. My wife goes out of town to trade shows in Vegas, for God's sake, with colleagues at work, and she's been on a lot of those kinds of trips. And I also know in my own circumstances that sometimes I'm the most understanding and gentle person some of my women clients have ever had. And that ends up being a difficult situation sometimes. So I sit there saying, well, who the heck did she have lunch with again today, and who's all going to Vegas and that stuff, and then I go to work and say, man, I'm not going to take another appointment with this person because this is getting too sweaty or whatever. You guys, your husbands they're kind, they're decent, they're successful, they're financially successful. They're the man at the work, and you got all these women there. Have you all discussed that, and what kind of deal you set up with that?
Well, I'm lucky because he's in construction. So there's not a lot of women that are around. And so it's a little bit different, but there's times where I kind of, have a little, and I don't know if it's jealousy or insecurity. I don't know. So, there's, every once in a while I'll make a little comment and he's like, what's that about? I'm like, oh, nothing, and, with me, I'm a teacher, so I'm pretty much around women. So there's not really a lot of men that I'm around, or that so it's kind of funny because he's smirking.
I could feel it.
But there's times that, like I said, I mean, I don't know if it's not warranted, but I do have, like...
But knowing you, you'd bring it up.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
I mean, you've told us that enough.
Yeah. No, and a lot of times he's like, what are you talking about? And I think there's a lot of naivety on his side that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Your wife says it's a big deal, so it's a big deal.
Yeah. Amy, what do you got on this topic? You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
There are some women at work, not a whole ton of women, but I just make it a point to know everybody that works there, and I get a read for how they act around my husband. And
Can you go for me?
and I've never had a problem. But I think about, the fact that, he's in a position of power and he probably looks attractive to a lot of people. And so I just make sure I look pretty good too. But we do have a family rule that right when we got married, because he was in grad school and there were lots of females there, that you're just not alone with a person of the opposite sex anywhere. So if you're at a restaurant, that's different. That's people are around. But neither one of us do that. So.
Yeah. Well, at restaurants, all people do is look at their phones anyway.
Oh, well,
so
true.
Nairi?
Well, let's see. That's something that I needed to sort of figure out early on, because he is more gone than he's at home. So he's in China, India, all over, really. And so Agos is a kind of guy who, it's very important to him how our girls look up to him. It's really important that when they look at him, they understand that he is respectful of women and he is respectful of his own family. And so we just have that understanding that, I don't worry about it when he travels. Really, it just really doesn't even, I don't think about it. It really doesn't bother me. And as far as how he feels about me, I'm not working, right? So he doesn't have that challenge to worry about. I'm at school, I'm at my kids' school, constantly running, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
Well, sorry to spring that question on you.
Yeah, I was thinking that,
yeah. You believe that we've done this now for an hour and 20 minutes?
Wow, really?
You do believe it?
I do
it's
believe
that long. You guys willing to field a question or so from the audience if anybody's got one?
Sure.
Anybody want to ask anything or comment? Other than afterwards come up and hug them for crying out loud? Okay, Jane, come on over.
All right. I can't believe they don't ask questions.
I've got a question.
Oh.
Okay, good.
You can ask later. Just kidding.
What's kind of one of those corny questions, like if you can go back before you met your husband, like what would you, or like right when you met each other, what would you like warn yourself about? Or like prepare, how would you prepare yourself and say you should be ready for this 15 years or 20 years or something like that?
So you're first.
No.
I'll go first.
Thank you.
If I could go back and warn myself, it would be to prepare myself to life with OCD. Mm-hmm. I am not an OCD person. I'm borderline, according to him, a messy person. And so I'm very comfortable in my mess. I know my mess. I know where to find my mess. I'm just one of those people. I can't work with complete, clean, empty desk. You know, you look at his desk and you think no one's ever used his desk ever before, and mine is just piles of things. But that's kind of how my brain works. And so that's been probably one of our biggest challenge, is trying to get used to each other's styles. And I can't really say that we've gotten over it. Like, it gets worse. It's getting worse and worse. Yeah. So.
Your husband asked it.
I know. I'm trying to think what is crowd appropriate. I think the thing that I've learned over time is just get ready to compromise. I mean, it's not your way or the highway if you want to stay married. So, you know, it came in with strong opinions, and he has those too. So, funny. So, yeah, just realizing that I would tell myself, get ready to compromise, get ready to really see what is your line in the sand and what you can give on, and just understand that it works out so much better when you're willing to come towards somebody and give in a little.
I think along the lines with the compromise is just knowing how to communicate with each other, because as I said, I talk too much and I think he doesn't talk enough. And so figuring out how to kind of combine those and to be able to have an appropriate conversation, that it's not, you know, taking both of our needs into consideration.
Yeah, I want the three of you to know that you have exceeded even my expectations. Wow. Honest to goodness.
I have a question, and see if I can frame this properly.
Oh.
All of you are females coming into a family business where it has been a patriarchal family founded. I don't know how in your businesses you roll your matriarch of the business. How have you worked to, how did you work to build the relationships and separate family issues from the business issues so that you can maintain those relationships positively?
That's a great question. I came into this family business, this Charlie's third generation. So his grandmother and grandfather actually started the business together, and she would pass out the paychecks, and she was somewhat involved in everyday things, and that has evolved over time. I don't do that type of thing, but have so much respect, and everybody has so much love and respect for her. She's passed. So I'm not trying to fill her shoes, because I don't think I ever could. But it is a delicate issue. And we have a mixed family. So Charlie's dad is remarried, and we get along really well, but we have Neil to thank for that, partly because we meet once a quarter and we talk about any issues that we have, and family bleeds into business and likewise. So I think that the key has been respect and just openness and truthfulness, and just knowing what's important and what just to let go of.
But your family also has a wonderful refusal to settle for mediocrity in relationships. And I respect you, McMurrays, very much for that. You are not going to allow a crummy situation to continue. You'll do something about it in a positive way.
I was going to say that maybe technically our family company is patriarchal, but I feel that my mother-in-law, who has passed also, I would consider her to be the matriarch of the family. Yes, it's true that my father-in-law was the president and CEO, but from what I hear about her and what she's done for the family, I feel like she was the most important part of that company, and the wind that allowed for the sales to go forward. And so I would think that ours is probably a matriarchal, from what I never met her, unfortunately. But it seems to me that ours was a little different in that sense.
I had the privilege of meeting her, and I think that what you said was very good, was accurate.
Right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So my mother-in-law is still very involved in the company, so there's a lot of things that go on, and she's been working right alongside with Dale since the beginning, whether it was at home doing books, raising the boys, or in the office, and she still goes in during the week, and she's very involved. They have their birthday luncheons, and she does all of that, and so she's very involved in all of that still.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
yeah,
very much so.
Well, what I know about
because there's the business and the family side, and I think that Preston is really trying to make sure that both of those are still honored. When they came from the two parents, but he's trying to make sure that they stay intact as everything continues to move forward.
Yeah. Well, what I know about your mother-in-law and yours, and what I've heard at the company about how formidable the grandfather's wife was, and how loved she was in that company, it seems to me that one of the important things for a successful family business is to have women who have big hearts and strong wills and great personalities with good values. And all of you have spoken to all of that this evening. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.